My name is Farouk, and I'm joined today with Marta. Marta, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Marta. I'm a motion designer and illustrator, and also the founder of the Design Me agency, where we produce videos for SaaS space,
Lovely.
mostly.
And so, Marta, how long have you been a designer for?
Oh, I've been a designer for around 7 or even 8 years, and but agency owner only for a couple of months, so not for a long time.
Right. So, so in the last 6 years of you sort of like getting into the space, did you like? It was just like educational background, or did you also like work at different companies? Like, what did you do before you became like a freelancer?
Actually, I did everything that you mentioned, because I had a 6 years education, so I have a master's degree as an animation and CGI artist. So I studied the foundation of the design, of animation, of drawing, composition, etc., like all this academic stuff. And also at the same time, I was working in different agencies, in a pretty huge projects, by the way. So just after 6 years of it, I decided to try myself being a freelancer.
Right. And so you said that you kind of do animated videos for SaaS. So as a freelancer, was that sort of the first focus? Like you kind of like decided to start freelancing and just focus on that, or did you have a different plan in mind at first?
Actually, I had a plan before going to a freelance, so I just wanted to try myself in different spaces, as I had an education, and during this educational process, I had the opportunity to work with different marketing and advertising agencies, and I was producing different videos, such as videos for YouTube, character animations. Then I switched to explainer videos, and after it, I decided to focus as a freelancer. I decided to niche down and focused only on explainer videos.
Love it, love it. And so, like, I want to. The first question that I like to ask everybody that kind of joins is: so, since you've kind of started recently, obviously as a freelancer, like you're looking to get clients. So, what's the approach that you've been taking so far to be able to get more clients? And if I'm to be more specific, like, what are the different channels that are you using to actually market and sort of sell your services at the moment?
Yeah, so the most important thing I defined myself was um, to shout out everywhere, like in every channel where I was existing as a personal, as a kind of small personal brand. So I told everyone everywhere that I'm now a freelancer. I'm doing these kind of services. I listed my services and I defined the price for each. It was like one of the first steps. And actually, this action helped me to lead a few clients. And then they recommended me to someone else, etc. So it kind of word of mouth, and it worked for like to get first clients pretty good.
Love it. So when you're mentioning that you're actually going out there and sort of mentioning that your services, was it like on Twitter or Instagram, or was it like any specific like platforms, or was it in real life? Like sort of what approach did you take?
You're right, everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
I did a huge announcement on Instagram, and at first I decided to build my personal brand on Instagram because I'm doing video animations and illustrations. So, and Instagram is also a visual platform. But then I decided to focus more on Twitter, and I found Twitter for myself only a few months ago, just when I started freelancing, or a little after. But
Yeah.
so yes, I just decided to focus on building my own personal brand, and so far it's bringing me some results. I'm pretty happy with it.
That's lovely. So because like some of the designers that I've talked to so far, and like they usually you'll see like, especially because I'm in the Twitter space, so I noticed there's a lot of designers that are on Twitter, but the same designers that usually are on Twitter, they aren't on Instagram, right? They're like they do have an Instagram page, but it's really more used for personal sort of reasons. In your case, though, you do talk about your life as a designer and sort of you give tips on there, but also you do it in a very nice, creative way. So sort of like what's the thought process there, and has Instagram itself played a role in sort of helping you get any clients in the past?
I have to admit that not really. And also, I feel sometimes really overwhelmed with when I lead to different platforms. It's Twitter for now and Instagram. It's from time to time, like I'm switching my focus from one to another, but I have a feeling that I will focus more on Twitter for now. As for Instagram, I talked to a lot of people in motion design sphere, and I found that for my specific niche for SaaS space, it's not the best option to lead and to find clients.
Right.
Because SaaS space is concentrated more on Twitter, and so I just found the situation that I need to focus on a platform where is my audience living.
Right. And so have you been able to sign any clients off of Twitter just by sort of like using your personal brand?
Yeah, yes. Oh, also, by the way, the next platform that works really well for me is Behance. I post a lot of, not really a lot of, but uh, like they're structured. I create structured cases for Behance with the result and all the steps, like
Right.
from the scratch, how my thought process is going on. And thanks for it, thanks to these cases, uh, I had pretty much clients landed. Yeah.
Lovely. And so you mentioned on your website and on Twitter as well that you've been able to work with big brands like LinkedIn and Miro. So how have you been able to get those clients?
Mostly it's word of mouth. So just
Right.
someone recommended me to someone, and with big clients, this thing only worked for me. I never did it myself. I never did cold outreach. Uh, I know I have to try it, but still, all the big clients I have, they found me themselves because they were asking someone, and I worked with someone. Uh, and as I already understood, there are not a lot of really good professionals in this sphere, especially in motion design area.
Right. So what do you think necessary? Because there are a lot of people, right, in the market. We're not necessarily going to say if they're good or like not so good as designers, but there are a lot of designers out there, a lot of motion designers. What do you think makes you stand out as like a designer in terms of like, what do you think like these big companies, because like there could be word of mouth, right? But if they end up looking at your designs and they don't necessarily like it, then they may decide not to work with you. But in your case, they actually really like the designs. By the way, I love your designs as well. It has a very unique touch to it. But so that being said, like, what do you think they sort of like decided to sort of like go with you as a designer?
I think that could sound not so good for most of the designers, but for me, I found that the fact that I have a master's degree, it really works super good. Like a lot of companies trust me because I have foundation of the design. I know that it's not so good in marketing case, but still at the design part, of the illustration and storytelling, I know how to do it really great. And like I think the thing that distinguishes me from other designers is that I'm an illustrator and animator, so I can do everything myself. I'm a kind of stop shop. I can design a brand from scratch, like to do brand design, logo design, illustrations, animation, and everything together. So I can design brands like fully prepared.
Right. So pretty much like the last 6 years, you've dedicated like a lot of time to sort of mastering your craft. And now you reach the point where like you feel very confident to start to deliver that great results.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
also it really helped me to beat the imposter syndrome because I know, and I also felt it, that a lot of people in our niche, they have it, like they feel themselves really imposters, especially when they're trying to figure out the price with the client and tell how they good are and other
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, thanks for 6 years of education. I was struggling with it a lot, especially when I was doing this plus work plus freelancing all at the same time. But at the final point, I don't have an imposter syndrome at all.
There's a lot of people that when they're first starting out, they're struggling with that. What would you say are other things like as a beginner, you or other beginners that you've seen like that are just starting out as designers? What are some things that are like struggles that a designer may have from like when we're talking about marketing or selling themselves, right? So what do you think are some of these struggles when somebody's first starting out?
Oh, that's hard itself being a designer when you don't have an experience of working with different brands and agencies. So actually, if I will repeat my path, I will do absolutely the same that I did already. I will start working with agency because they have art director, they have a manager, and when you start in freelancing, you have to manage all things together, like only by yourself. You have to find clients, you have to manage your projects, and beat your imposter syndrome as well. But when you're in agency, you're like you have someone who can guide you. And I guess after a few years of working with agencies, you can start work as a freelancer, like with a good foundation, because you will understand how to lead the project properly, like stage by stage, how to lead client, and where you can make a mistake and how to deal with it.
Right, right. Totally. And that's the thing. And I have designers on my team who sort of they're in charge of design initiatives, but they always mention to me like, I wish like I was able to work sort of at like, let's say like at a proper design agency where I can not necessarily lead the design team, but also sort of have people that I can sort of look up to, people that could sort of like tell me, because here's the thing, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like that's one of those things. Like you just like, you're sitting there, you feel like you're doing things right, but then you don't like, there are things that probably that you're doing that are fundamentally wrong that you just wouldn't know unless somebody were to point that out.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And since you got the chance to work with brands like LinkedIn and like Miro, would you say that other than the like idea of like sort of helping with like diminishing like the imposter syndrome, would you say that it sort of facilitated future deals in the sense that like when you got on a call with a potential client and they looked that you worked with some of these big brands, do you notice that they maybe treat you different or that the sales process is easier? Like what's sort of your experience with that?
Yeah, of course, it definitely helps me because it builds trust. Uh, Almost all the time, when it's not word of mouth, when it's not a situation when someone recommends me, so the client find a new person to him, and we don't have any foundation of trust. And having some big clients means that some managers or some decision makers, they already made a decision to work with exactly with you. And why not to trust this person if he or she already did some good works to these companies?
Right. And I was curious. So we were talking earlier about like the marketing channels, and we talked about Twitter and sort of how you're using that and focusing on that. And also you talked a bit about Behance too. I'm curious, have you thought about platforms like that are usually popular amongst freelancers, such as Upwork, Fiverr? Have you thought about sort of being on there and sort of selling your services on there?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have experience of both of them. I tried working with Fiverr, and honestly, I didn't like it at all because there are a lot of people who are trying to decrease the price, and you are beating with
Companies or people that aren't financially doing well, if you want to say.
yes,
Yeah.
true.
It's interesting you bring this up, and it's actually very true. And I myself, even on Upwork, I realized that like Fiverr is known for that. I mean, the reason they call the Fiverr like Fiverr is because it's like a $5 sort of like it's £5, right? So that's why they call it. So it's sort of like it was that idea is there. But even on Upwork, you're right. Like there are people I notice when on Upwork as a designer, I'm like, people are like, I remember the first call that I ever had from somebody on Upwork, they wanted a video, a 1-minute video, animated video. I was really excited. It was a SaaS company that's been around for like 6 years. And so we got the like idea of pricing. And so I was curious, it didn't seem like this person like had the budget. So instead of giving a price, I just asked, so what's your budget? And they were like, yeah, I have like 70 euros available for that. And I'm like, I'm like, what? I'm like, how are we supposed to work with that? You know, so it's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, you get surprised. But then at the same time, every now and then on these platforms, you will find these big people that are like so ready to pay. I mean, there's another designer that I'm hoping to get soon on the podcast as well. His name is Mike. Mike's been able to make $300,000 just from like Fiverr, right? So selling
Wow.
videos on Fiverr. So it's like it's about finding the niche, but yeah, definitely like getting started on there, it can be a bit brutal, especially with all the prices on there.
Yeah, that's true. So as for Fiverr, I decided that it's not really related to my niche because I do explainer videos and it's absolutely not $5, like not even near about it. But about Upwork, I have a great experience and I'm existing on this platform. I'm landing from time to time clients from the Upwork. And yes, I also started, it was, I guess, a few years ago, about 4 years ago, I think. I don't actually remember, but I already got more than 10K from this platform. So it's like from time to time, when I was a freelancer as a student, I landed like not really high check clients, but it also helped me to earn some money. Especially being a student, it's a great opportunity. So yes, the thing for Upwork I found for myself is just when you don't have any reviews, it's like a review driven platform. So if you don't have any reviews, you have to like decrease your price. So, and when you're doing it, you can land a good client. And when you have some of good reviews for your work,
Right.
you can already get some high ticket clients. So yes, I have some clients from the Upwork and they are retaining.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's like basically what you're saying is like sacrifice at the beginning, build up your reputation on the platform so that you can get better clients in the future.
Yeah, true.
Right. And, since you're a freelancer and as a designer, like you're actually working on the designs yourself, but then also you're out there, you're trying to marketing, you're trying to sell yourself, you're posting on Instagram, on Twitter, you're on Behance, you're sometimes getting projects on Upwork. So how do you manage basically all these components like marketing, sales, fulfilling, and then client communication, and then actually living your life, like how do you kind of like balance all of that?
I'm struggling with it a lot, honestly. Especially if I just started building my own agency, like there are a lot of things to do. Really a lot of. I'm just trying to like don't land not to land a lot of clients, but still sometimes I find myself in a situation when I have too much clients and I'm overwhelmed with work and I still have a lot of things to do for my own agency. But I found for myself, I read a book. It's called Seven Habits of Efficient People, as I remember. So yes, it was a chapter about time blocking. So I'm doing exactly things from this book. I'm doing my plan for a week, like list to them tasks that I have to do for my design agency and for myself as well. And after I also prioritize them. And this kind of life hack, it's super easy to do, but it really helps me to prioritize some tasks that I have to do for my agency as well. So yes, I guess this is my best manager's life hack.
Yeah. So, but then obviously, like, as an agency owner, like at some point, like the idea is like to actually build an agency and to grow an agency, you would need the team, right? So have you thought about that? And if you have, like, do you have an idea at the moment, like what are potential roles, like, because there are sometimes designers who prefer to just handle the design part and then maybe get people to do the marketing and sales. Other times there are designers that are happy to sort of be the representative of the company and then have other people fulfill on the design. So what kind of direction do you see yourself taking in the future?
Oh yeah, and the ideal situation for me is being an art director. I love to tell people what to do, how to do, and lead the project. So this is my ideal situation. But now, of course, I have to handle everything myself. I have to be a manager. I have to be a social media designer, etc. Like, and also a face of my agency and a worker. But I made a great step recently. So it's been 2 months since I have a worker, full-time worker for myself, for my agency.
Right.
So yes, it was a great step for me, and I found how cool is it to delegate a work to the person who you trust. It was important to find a person who does the work really well at the proper level.
Right. So that person, like, what's their role? Is it like, are they helping with the design part, the fulfillment of the videos?
Yes, she's helping me with the video animation. I'm still doing illustrations because I really love it. But for me, the most overwhelming part in creation, video creation, is to do the animation.
Right.
So it takes much more time for me than illustration. That's why I decided to, for some of the projects, to give this animation part to her.
Love it. That's amazing. That's one step closer to sort of reaching the point where, like, you know, you want to be an art director. Then the next step would perhaps be you have somebody who's actually going out there helping you maybe with the posting, or even posting, or like actually going on different platforms and handling the marketing and sales. So you're not that far off from actually reaching that goal of reaching an art director. So
Glad to hear.
I'm glad that you brought this up, though. Like, we're talking about all of this because I remember I saw one of your posts on Instagram where you were talking about sort of like the fear of, like, sort of like taking vacations, almost like that idea that, you know, because you're like working all the time, as in you're trying to like start this off, you're worried that if you actually took a break, then you'd lose all your clients. But then you came to the realization recently that that's not really the case. So what's the story behind all of this? Like, what was the thought process here?
Oh yeah, the first time I had a vacation being a freelancer, it was like 1 or 2 months ago. I guess 2 months ago, yeah. And yes, I was super scared to do it because you almost always have a lot of ongoing projects and you have to manage all of them, and you're like stuck in this routine. But at some point, your brain is just melting with everything. And I just found myself in a situation when I can't handle everything, and like all my clients started to complain about the process, about the deadlines, etc. I know that I have to do everything, but my brain like can't handle everything. So at this point, I decided that soon I have to take a vacation and not work at all. Like I decided to go to another city and not take my laptop at all. It was the first time in my life I was without my laptop. It was the scariest thing ever for me.
I can imagine, yeah. Especially if you're like, if you find yourself always working and always studying and always improving, and then all of a sudden it's like it's not there. So I could see that happening. But you overcame another fear as well, which is great. Now, Marta, before we were talking about some channels, we were talking about some of the channels that you're focusing on, like marketing channels. We talked about, like, let's say Twitter, LinkedIn. Do you do LinkedIn, by the way? I never asked. Or like the next, let me ask the question in the complete form. Are there other marketing channels that you sort of haven't considered yet, but you're potentially like willing to consider, like perhaps LinkedIn or YouTube, for example, or just any other channel?
Oh, yes. I guess at some point I will turn to LinkedIn for sure. It will be my next point because I know that there are a lot of my target audience and they could be interested in my services. But also I thought about YouTube, but still I'm not sure about, I don't know. It's very writing a podcast for now, recording a podcast. Uh, this is my first step of being like recorded for a video. So
Right.
maybe after a few podcasts like this, I will take the next big step to start a YouTube channel.
Yes.
We'll
And
see.
regarding like let's talk a bit more. We talked a lot about marketing. Let's talk about more sales. So when it comes to sales calls, right? You jump on a call with a client or potential client. Like, what's the process for you? Like, what do you kind of come into the call with, like, sort of like some, like, is there a strategy in mind that you have, or are there like certain like questions that you feel like you're supposed to ask? Like, what's the objective of like a sales call for you, so that you could kind of get one step closer to actually, winning over the trust of the client and closing the deal?
Yeah, so I have to mention before that most of my calls are with warm clients. As I didn't do cold outreach yet,
Yeah.
uh, I didn't have like these typical sales calls. All client that have a call, all clients that have call with me, they're interested to work with me already. So almost everything I have to do is to describe the process of work, and at the beginning, to understand their needs, how they're gonna use the video, how do they imagine the final result, what problem do they want to solve with the video. But most of the questions I take from my briefing, so it's not about the call itself, because I send a Google form with all the questions I need to have before working on a video.
Right. And so from the current calls that you've had, when it comes to like at the end of any sales call, there's usually like the topic of like pricing, right? So as you sort of discuss sort of the benefits of your service, or sort of like what you try to figure out if like why the other person or company needs your video. Once you figure out that they actually do need it and you understand why, then usually the question of pricing comes up, right? It's either you propose it or the client asks. So how do you approach that? Like before getting even into the sales call, like what's sort of in your mind in terms of how to price, and how do you even base your pricing? Because if I were to run a marketing agency and I were to be able to consistently generate $10,000 for you, let's say, then I would be able to price based on that. But with video, sometimes it can be a bit hard because it's more of like a design, right? So how would you say that you price your videos when you're pitching that to your clients?
Oh, that's a tough question, actually.
Right.
It's still a kind of problem for me, because I'm still not really okay with defining prices, and it's changing from time to time. So yes, the main thing is to understand the references, like what kind of a video do they want, what is the timing, and these are also the thing I have to define on this sales call.
Right.
So yes, currently I have just a price range, and usually it comes after the call. I send references like this video we can do for this price, this video for this price, or it could be a price range.
Right, I see. So you don't usually give like a price on the call, but it's more like after the call. Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that like more effective? Because there are some people that would, maybe even the company themselves that are talking to you, they may prefer to actually have the price like on the spot, right? Because they kind of getting on the call, they feel like they want to know, okay, so I know I want a video, but like what's the price? So do you think like it would be better perhaps maybe sometimes to give the price on the spot, or is it just it wouldn't make sense to kind of give the price on the call itself?
Sometimes it makes sense then when the client is asking directly. If the client is super interested with the price, I can just tell about the price range.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Perfect. And
yeah, this approach like gives me a little more space of movement. Like I can suggest this or that.
Love it. And what would you say are certainly some of the mistakes? We talked about this a bit before, but let's talk a bit about this more. There's a lot of people that are coming on this show. They're designers. They're trying to sort of make it as a designer. Some people, maybe they're not freelancers yet or not agency owners yet, but they would like to become one. How did you, like, what sort of motivated you to take that step to actually, quit your job and to just sort of focus on creating and starting your own agency? Like, how did you know that was the right time to do that, to make that move?
I love when such things in my life just comes naturally, one by one. So it was a point when we decided to break with my current job where I was an art director of the brand. We did almost everything they wanted to do when they hired me, and then we decided to stop our contract. And at this point, I was super scared to do freelancing because I never done it like full time.
You just sort of felt that it was the right moment to sort of like jump, and you were afraid to make that jump, yet you still made that jump. when you made that jump, was there any point where you felt like there was like regret? Like you sort of became a freelancer all of a sudden, you're like, maybe I should just kind of go back to working at an agency, or did you just kind of like just go with it and go all out?
Oh, I never regret about my decisions. I
Right.
never had that in my life. So when I make a decision, I will do it at the like by the final point when I will achieve some results. So I decided that even I won't have any um, well, like money that I really want to have in this stage, I will just wait a little or do some other steps, like improve my marketing or find time to improve my website, etc. So uh, yes, but this step was definitely super scary to me. This came naturally from my previous work as an art director of the brand here in Portugal. They found me and they had just a lot of things to do. And after a few months of working with a contract, we decided that we have to stop this work as we did most of the things. We had to figure out their new startup in Portugal, and now they're successful here. But they don't need me anymore. And as well, I also wanted to switch again, like my field of work from basic graphic design and motion design for social media that we did with them, again to explainer videos. I found that this is my real passion and I want to proceed exactly with it. So yes, I just decided to move as a freelancer further.
Right. And if somebody were to, let's say there's a designer out there right now that's sort of watching this and they're working at an agency or they're experienced at the moment, but they haven't taken that step to become a freelancer. What would you say are some of the advice like that they would like you would love to give them for them to sort of, if they decide to make that jump, like how can they actually start actually going out there, getting their first clients? Like what's sort of the approach that you would suggest they take?
My favorite one is I have to mention that I'm super anxious person about it. So my perfect advice, the one I will give to myself for sure, to have a financial cushion, like to have some money, some saved money, in case if you won't be successful enough, like as you want, or you will need to pay
Design?
someone or for something, you need to have some money saved in this case. And this step is super important and it will for sure uh, like make you comfortable and confident in what you're doing.
Right. So like that's really big. And so let's say like, okay, you're in a situation now, right? You have that financial cushion, you make that jump. What next? Like you're there, like you decide to like quit, right? Now you're on as a freelancer. What's the approach do you take? Like how do you get the attention of brands? Because we were talking before, like if you're just starting out on Twitter and you're building your personal brand, it's going to take some time before you start seeing results. If you go on
Yeah, for
Upwork,
sure.
you're going to have to build it up. So what are like some advice that you think like that? Where should somebody start when it comes to sort of like marketing themselves and getting themselves out there and building a personal brand?
The most important, the most important for the designer and the motion designer as well is to have a portfolio. If you don't have a portfolio, you won't be hired by any company, even the smallest one. So the important step is to create somewhere your portfolio. My own approach was to create my own website. So I took some time for just building it. It took me around 7 or 8 days to build everything from scratch. Uh, but yes, I found that it really, really helped me a lot. Also, I already had some work cases. So if you're working with agency, you might be able to use some of your works like illustrations or animations or graphic design in your portfolio, but also mention the agency that you worked with and your role also.
Right. And would you ever suggest that somebody like consider doing free work in order to build their portfolio? Like if somebody doesn't have a strong portfolio, would you suggest that as like a recommendation?
I know that it's a common thing among designers. It's called pet projects when you do some free stuff or charge not a lot and take a project from your it could be your friends, like your friend's brand, something like this, or a huge brand, but it didn't pay for you. Like you can work for Starbucks, for example, or LinkedIn as well, but they actually didn't pay for you. You can't mention these cases as like my clients, but still you will have this in your portfolio. And if this work is good, you can be hired by another brand.
I love it. Yeah. And I've seen this as a strategy that a lot of designers have used when they first start out, especially if you can do something creative with a brand that people love. It'll get you a lot of engagement. Like the strategy that I've seen a lot of people use is like they'll create like a concept for like a design. Let's say it's a video in this case. Let's say it's Starbucks, and then they post it on Twitter. And if like there's people that see it, especially in the design community, and they find it creative, it could help you like really build your following from just like that kind of like approach.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I really love it. It's the first case, like it looks just great.
Right. And Marta, let me ask, like, where do you go from here, right? So, like, you're currently today where you are. You're trying to build your agency. You're trying to manage all these different like components. You mentioned that already. You have somebody that's working with you sort of full time. They're helping you with the design. What's the next step? Like, do you have a plan for like the next 6 month, the 12 month? Like, where do you want your agency to be so that you could reach a point where you could actually become the art director and sort of like focus on that?
Yeah, so currently I'm taking a small vacation. It's a vacation actually. Like I will take 1 month, about 1 month uh, to define my new strategy of the agency and to build a new website and do some marketing stuff, like establish some social media from agency. And I'm planning hopefully to do everything in 1 month. And from this point, I will be able to suggest new things and new services to my clients. So we'll see how these hypotheses will be going on.
I love this. This is a very interesting and unique approach because, we were talking before about like the whole fact that people, like in general, people are usually overworking. They don't take vacations. And here you are like actually taking a vacation, but it's sort of like it's a vacation, but it's also like where you're thinking long-term and big picture. Right.
Yeah.
And so did you get this idea from somewhere, or did you just decided to sort of like, is this something that you came up with, or you read about it somewhere, or like, what's the idea behind that? Like the 1 month sort of like brainstorming.
No, just the thing that really works for me.
Right.
If I want to do something properly and for myself, for my own agency, I have to take some time for it. I'm not the person who thinks super fast and delivers, not delivers. Like I need some time to take some decisions. So that's why I'm doing it. I just have to focus only on myself and to brainstorm my future goals.
I love it. It's just instead of actually rushing things, actually do things maybe more precise and just actually be just more thoughtful with the work that you do, which is great. I mean, this is exactly when somebody's trying to work with you as a designer, that's exactly the type of traits they're looking for, right? Because they don't want to work with somebody that's rushing through their work. They want somebody that's actually putting thought behind the work that they're doing. So that definitely super important. And I guess just before we sort of end this lovely episode, I just want to ask, like, is there anything that you would say that maybe we haven't discussed yet, sort of that maybe you would like to sort of share, whether it's about you and your brand, or maybe sort of like designers, and what kind of message we could give to any designer that's watching this show?
I could say about my approach, my personal approach about the life in general.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not rushing in general, like to do each step. It just comes naturally. And I think if you're doing right steps, it just comes like you're in the waves, and everything comes naturally. So just plan your life, not just a day, but your life, and have your own goals. And it's super important to break down your goals into some smaller steps. Like you want to earn X amount of money or to be in X position, just do it step by step. It won't happen in a month, or maybe not in a year. So if you will break it down, you will just find yourself in a situation when someone takes you to the podcast and you're doing some interviews, but just a few years ago, you were a starter, a junior, and yes, now you're here, and you still have a huge and long step further.
Right. I love it. And I love the practical advice that you've given in this show. So, Marta, it's been a pleasure having you on here. Hopefully, we'll have you on some future episodes as this podcast grows. And I would love to sort of like, it would be nice to sort of have this where we can have a future episode and sort of see where you've been able to progress as an agency owner. So, either way, really appreciate your time, Marta. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Farouk. It was a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you. Like, it was a great conversation.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Marta.